I decided to start singing, but in true Jo style, instead of joining just one choir, I was singing in 3 choirs at the time. So apart from the benefits of the singing, I'd actually added further stress in there.
Power to Live More with Jo Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. Hi, this is Jo Dodds, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different with the podcast. I'm just going to record myself. I'm not going to do an interview, and that's because I want to talk to you about the 5 fundamentals that I use within my business to help people to basically get things straight in life, business, and what you're doing, so that you get the opportunity, the ability, the time, the energy to do what I call live more. And by that I mean do more of the stuff that you want to do. We spend so much time dashing around doing things for other people and doing things that we think we should do and doing things that we've committed to that maybe we don't really want to do. And it's really important, I think, to take some time out and actually get really clear about what we do want to do and organise our lives and our work around making that happen. And this all came about for me when I started my business Power to Live More about 3 years ago. So POWER stands for productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. And so the business Power to Live More is all about using those tools, getting those things going in your life and business and work, so that, as I say, you get the chance to live more. It came about because about 5 years ago now, so 2012, my mum died with only a few days' notice of lung cancer. It wasn't long after my father-in-law was diagnosed with cancer himself, and he's since died, and her partner died about 6 months after her. So it was a bit of a year of sort of shocks and upheaval, and it just really got to me about the fact that I'd spent so much of my life working, really hard, and all the hours there were, particularly when I started my business in 2005, which I did so that I could spend more time at home with my soon to become little daughter, little Doddsy. And what I realised at that stage, having had about 6 years of my own business at that stage, was that I actually was working a lot more than I was when I was in corporate. I was pulling some all-nighters at times, so I was publishing a magazine or a number of magazines, and I had really hefty deadlines to hit, and so that caused some issue. I also wasn't going to some of the family things that were happening. There'd be sort of days out and everyone would go out, including little Doddsy, and go and do something fun, and I'd be at home, or if I was with them, I'd spend all the time worrying about the fact that I should have stayed at home and got done what I needed to get done. So it was a bit of a treadmill and was quite stressful, and it really took those deaths in the family and as I say, my father-in-law being diagnosed with terminal cancer as well, to really sort of pull me up short and encourage me, that's the word, to look at doing something different. And so I started to explore a lot more about how to... Well, I'd always been into productivity. I'd always been really clear about being organised and getting the best out of my time, and sort of reading lots of stuff about that and testing things and sort of honing things for me. But I guess the bit that I was missing was the bit about sort of looking after myself and getting used to enough being enough, being sort of quite a... achieving personality. I'd want to keep doing more, and I'd keep adding more in, and I've sort of come to realise that it's about being clear about the things that I want to do and adding more of those things in, as opposed to just adding stuff. I also personally had been ill, and I also had one night around that sort of time where I'd actually had a seizure in the middle of the night, which I think we put down in the end to various things like stress and my diet and various other things, although the doctors did decide it might have been epilepsy, but I didn't want to be treated for that in case we never knew whether it was that or not, and I didn't get treated, and I haven't had another one since, so I do think it was to do with the stress at the time. So all of that led up to the Power to Live More and to the 5 fundamentals that I want to share with you today. So the first fundamental is about simplifying. So it's about being really clear about what's important to you, what goals you want to achieve, what relationships you want to develop, what experiences you want to have, what you want to focus on, who you are, what you want to do, all of that sort of stuff. And that varies for different people in terms of your perspective. Some people are real goal setters, some people are, work on the basis of visions, some people just know the sort of person they want to be and the sort of experiences that they want to have. And once you're clear about that, it's then working your way through all the stuff that you do and keeping doing the stuff that's leading you to where you want to be and to what you want to do, and starting to get rid of the stuff that you don't want to do. So that includes saying no to people. Where you've said yes to people and you don't like whatever that is, it's about perhaps moving forwards and stopping doing that. So, for me, some of those things were that I used to run a netball club, and that was getting really stressful, and where the exercise was a positive, the actual stress of being involved in the club after 4 years wasn't particularly helpful. I then had joined some choirs because I'd heard that singing was as good for your personal well-being, your mindfulness, as yoga and meditation. I didn't want to do either of those two things, so I decided to start singing, but in true Joe style, instead of joining just one choir, I was singing in 3 choirs at the time. So apart from the benefits of the singing, I'd actually added further stress in there. And also, I'm a bit of a serial volunteer. I think people who volunteer for things do tend to be like that. So I had to make a conscious decision to say that I wasn't going to continue saying yes to voluntary work. So I stopped playing netball. I left the club. I stopped singing in one of the choirs, and I've made a very conscious effort to sit on my hands when people are looking for volunteers for groups and so on now. So I've stuck with the secretary of one of the choirs, and I'm a trustee for Age UK, and I'm a board member for Young Enterprise. So those are things that I'm particularly interested in, but I'm not actually taking other things on after that. So so it's something that it's not easy to say no and to stop yourself doing all these things, especially if that's in your nature, but actually not really working out what you want in the first place and being confused or just not thinking it through can be part of the reason why you end up saying yes to everything if you're that sort of helpful person. So be really clear about what you want to do, what you don't want to do, and then aligning what you do with that. The second S is about systemization. So that's about creating processes, perhaps automating tasks that you do on a regular basis, creating ways to get things done with ease. And it can be a bit daunting for people who aren't particularly organised. And when I say you probably need an operating manual for your business, if you have a business or if you're at work, that you have certain set processes that you do to get things done. And it all sounds a bit sort of overly organised and perhaps a bit daunting for people who are less organised. But actually the beauty of having systems and checklists and lists of things that you need to do when you do them on a repeated basis is that you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. You don't have to keep thinking through the things that you want to do each time you want to do them to try and remember the best way to do them and make sure that you're not wasting your time. There's a really good book I recommend called The Checklist Manifesto, which talks about implementing checklists into operating theatres in hospitals, inspired by the fact that pilots use checklists when they set off each time to fly the plane, which I think fills me with great confidence that pilots and doctors are using checklists. Some of the things that I do in my own business is that I, for example, when I publish this podcast, I have a set series of tasks that I have to do each time, and I could just work my way through them off the top of my head because I've been doing it for long enough to remember what those things are, but actually I have them written down in a template, and every time I record an interview I set up a new project for that particular podcast that has all the templated tasks in there, which means I don't have to think through, I don't have to get them in the right order, I don't have to remember how I add the meta tags to the back end of the podcast because I only do it sort of once a week or once a fortnight or whatever it might be. It takes a bit of time up front to make those lists and to create that list and to keep them maintained. But actually the amount of time and stress that you can save by having them in place can be really helpful. And then when we think about things like automation, there are brilliant tools online nowadays to help you to get stuff done that you don't need to physically do yourself. So for example, I use an app called Zapier, Zapier. And that's a bit like IFTTT, which stands for if this then that. And basically the tool connects two different websites or apps together to enable stuff to happen without you needing to intercede and actually do that yourself. And an example of how I use that is if you book onto either of the two podcasts that I do, it will automatically book you in to my system. So if you're going to come into this podcast, for example, it will automatically book a GoToMeeting, which is what I use to record it. It will put something into my calendar. It will also draft an email for me to send to you to confirm that that interview is in place. All behind the scenes, I don't have to do that. Which means that as a customer of mine, as a podcast guest, it sounds very organised and like I know what I'm doing. I'm professional, but also it means I don't actually physically have to do anything because it's all being done for me. Obviously, when I set it up, it took some time to get that set up, but it now just happens, behind the scenes. Another thing I've set up is on my social media. I read articles on a tool called Pocket, and then I want to share them onto LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and so on. And I've set up a way that when I just tag an article with particular tags behind the scenes, Zapier will take that information and post it automatically into my Buffer account to then share on the different platforms that I want to share it on. And the reason I've done that is because it doesn't need me physically to share that article on those social media platforms at the time. I need to be on there to have conversations with people and to connect and engage with people, but I don't actually need to be there to share useful content I've found. And so I've set that up as an automated process so that actually all I have to do is tag an article and everything will happen behind the scenes. Again, it took a bit of time to work out how that was going to work to get the automation set up, but now it runs really smoothly and takes very little time for me to share that useful content online. So Systemize is about, as I say, creating processes and automating repeated tasks, organising yourself and making sure that you've got these systems in place so that stuff gets done with ease and you don't have to spend as much time doing it. The third S is share, and that's about getting other people involved. And that may be that it's people in your family, it might be colleagues at work, it might be delegating, it might be outsourcing if you run your own business. It might also be about accountability and buddying up with people and perhaps masterminding, so asking people to help. So that covers, the whole spectrum of help, if you like. And some of that is about, we should only be doing the stuff that we're really good at and that we really want to do, and that, that's the right thing for us to be doing. There are other people who can do a better job at some of those things that at the moment we're doing, and we can delegate those and outsource those. Sorry, I got slightly distracted there. The house rabbit was nibbling something he shouldn't have done. So I've sent him out of the office. So all that scratching you might have heard wasn't me, it was the rabbit. So sharing with other people so that you get support, so that the people who are best at doing that particular job get to do that job. And as I say, also maybe about getting people to support you, to help you to come up with new ideas or just to keep you accountable within your business or within your work or even within your family life. So as an example, I have to post a podcast that I do with the Engage for Success movement on the website each week and put it onto SoundCloud and also promote next week's show. It's a very routine job that I really didn't want to keep doing, and so I've outsourced it to a VA who's based in the Philippines. So actually, doesn't cost me very much money, but she gets a good weekly wage from it, and she's been doing that for me now for probably 2 or 3 years, and I just don't even have to think about it. I just know it's going to happen on a weekly basis and I don't need to worry. So, there are ways and means. Other websites that might help you with that are things like Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, and there's an English version which is 5squid.co.uk. So how can you get other people to help you? Which means, not only do you get to do the things that you're best at and you want to do, but also it can be really helpful for your energy levels and your resilience if you're not sort of diluting your efforts or really having to do the stuff that you're not so good at or you don't want to do. The fourth S is self-care. I talked a bit about how that was quite a priority for me when I sort of started changing things around in my business. And the 4 areas I look at in self-care are nutrition, so what you're eating, exercise, how much you're moving around, sleep, and mindfulness, or just basically being in the moment. I don't do, as I said, any of that sort of meditation or yoga sort of forms of mindfulness, but I do sing, and I sing in a 4-part choral society where you can't do anything other than pay attention to what you're singing when you're singing those complicated works and you're having to count and breathe and everything else. So, I'd get my in the moment mindfulness piece from there. But then I'm also very aware of, when I'm at occasions, when I have experiences where in the past I might have been thinking about what else was going on and what I should have been doing in my work or why I didn't want to be there or whatever. I really take time now to look around me, see what's happening, really experience what's happening at that time, and park the rest of the stuff for when I have a more appropriate moment for it. Nutrition, I do believe that what you eat is really important for your energy levels and for your general health, and I recommend people like Fitter Food and Bulletproof and Mark's Daily Apple. So people like that is the people I sort of follow in terms of nutrition. But there's loads of people who can help you to think about what works best for you. And then exercise. I'm not a real gym bunny or any of that stuff. Don't go running or anything. What I do now is I do make sure I go out walking as many days as I can. It's supposed to be every day, but I have to admit it isn't. But I also live in a 3-story house, so I'm up and down the stairs all day as well, so that can be quite helpful. But just making sure you keep moving. And the other thing is I have a standing desk, so I spend quite an amount of the working day actually standing, but I can make it lower as well so I can sit down too. So I do vary that as well. So I'm not one of these people who say, it's all got to be perfect and wonderful and, my body is a temple and all that sort of stuff. It is about pragmatic stuff that makes you feel good and you can do, on an incremental daily basis. And another book I recommend is The Slight Edge, and it talks about just really small daily actions and what impact that can have in the long term in your life. And that covers a whole host of areas, but for me, from a sort of self-care point of view, those sorts of regular routines and rituals that you can build in to help you with these areas can be really really helpful. And the other one on that actually is thinking about relationships and people that you spend time with. Make sure that you're spending time with people that energise you, with people that help you to feel good, rather than the opposite. We, I think, spend too much time with people who aren't helping us from a self-care point of view, and being aware of that and sort of changing what we do and who we spend time with can be really helpful to that as well. So that sort of connects up a bit with the share fundamental before as well. And then the 5th S is sustain. So I've talked already about routines and rituals, and we'll throw habits in there as well. I put this one in actually when I first started working with these fundamentals. It wasn't there, and I then put it in because actually getting all that stuff right, so being clear about what you want to do, systemizing and processing and creating automation and so on, and then sharing and delegating and outsourcing and looking after yourself, all that stuff doesn't really keep happening if you don't have the sustain piece in there. So if you haven't got the rituals, the habits, the routines to keep this stuff happening. So that's very much part of the 5 fundamentals now, thinking about how you can create triggers for things to happen. So if you want to, for example, as I said, like walking every day, I listen to podcasts when I walk. I know that some people like to go out and just really experience nature and being outside and the sort of noises around them. If that's what I was doing, I'd be even less likely to go walking. So I have the podcast to keep me interested in something as I'm walking along. I do try and look around and experience nature and so on, but the podcast really helped to motivate me to keep going. And then I quite often have errands built in, so I need to go into town for something, or if I need to go to the shop, I will purposely walk there rather than take the car, and that will get me out of the house as well. And I've realised recently as well that trying to walk in the afternoon is of no use, because I generally get tied up in work and stuff, and I find 5 million reasons why not to leave the house. And so for me, going in the morning fits better. I'm more likely to do it, and actually it gets the endorphins going and actually kicks the day off well for me as well. So it's about finding out what works for you, and just trying to, as I said, keep that sort of small daily actions, that consistency, those rituals, that the habits to sort of keep moving forwards with things. Another example for me is I like to do a bit of business reading every day. So what I do now is I make a cup of coffee somewhere around sort of midday, and I sit down with a coffee and the book and read whilst I'm enjoying my coffee. And again, that's a bit of a trigger for that moment to make sure that I keep doing that. So those are the 5 fundamentals, and the thing to remember with them is it's always a work in progress. this stuff, I do a fair amount around each of those. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing what I do if I didn't. But, I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect and getting it right all the time, and that my routines and rituals are perfect, and I never miss, as I say, a walk or whatever. But, the more you can just keep working on a daily basis on each of these 5 areas, the more you can create that space, that time, that energy to enable you to do the stuff that you want to do more of. And, on that point, I was reading something on Facebook this morning, and somebody said that she'd started doing some planning. She was using a planner and started to put in some information about getting stuff done and finding space and finding space for herself, and then she had to do a list of the things that she was going to do in that time for herself. And she was saying she'd been so busy for so long that actually she'd forgotten what she enjoys doing. And I thought, I think that's really easy to do. And I think I was probably there when I was working so hard. I didn't really have any hobbies, maybe my netball, but I'd say that I liked reading, but I couldn't probably have come up with anything else that I would have done if I hadn't have been working. And I think that's part of the thing, that we get so frenetic and overwhelmed in our lives that we sort of don't take the time to think about the things that we do want to do. So perhaps start by doing that. Do a list of the things that you want to do if you were living more, what those things would be. So for me, it's things like singing and reading, going to the theatre, spending time with friends, spending time with little Dodsy, and so on. Make that list and then think about those 5 fundamentals and how you can apply them in your life to enable you to find that time and that energy to enable you to do more of those things. So I hope you found that useful. If you want to find out more, you could go to my website, which is powertolivemore.com, and you can download my 5 fundamentals checklist, which will take you through those 5 fundamentals and allow you to ask yourself some questions around how you're applying them within your life and your work. The other thing you might be interested in, I've said over the last few podcasts, in fact for probably months, because I was procrastinating a bit, I have to say. I'm now calling it intentional procrastination, on launching a mastermind for people who want some help with applying the 5 fundamentals in their lives. And I am ready to launch that now. And if you go to powertolivemore.com/mastermind, you can find out more about the program. It's a 6-month program, and it's, as I say, designed to help you work very consistently through each of the 5 fundamentals in your own life. So it's very personalised to you, with the support of the other people in the mastermind group, and obviously with my support as well, so that you can find that time and energy to do the stuff that you want to do to live more. And the real differentiator, I think, in this program, which I don't see in many programs that are offered, is the level of accountability. I'm one of these people who needs my clients to actually do stuff and change and transform and get results, because if you don't, then that doesn't make me feel good. And in order to do that, I believe that there needs to be some level of accountability in these sorts of programs. So there's the mastermind concept, which creates accountability with the group of people that you're working with, but there's also a daily online tool that we use to enable you to check in and keep in touch on the things that you've decided you're going to do each session, each of the 6 cycles, and let us know how you're getting on. Record for yourself how you're getting on, so that you can see where things perhaps aren't working so well, or you need a bit of extra support, or perhaps you've decided to do the wrong thing and you need to make an adjustment to that. And so I think that's a really key part of the program. It's that whole accountability piece to yourself and to other people in the group, to make sure that you really do make those changes that you want to make to get you that time and energy to do the things that you want to do. So as I say, if you're interested in finding out more about that, then please go to powertolivemore.com/mastermind. All this information is available in the show notes on the website, powertolivemore.com / in this case 40. The website is the place to go if you want to find out how I can help you to improve your productivity, organisation, wellbeing, energy and resilience, your power to live more, and that's do more of what you want to do. If you go to the website, you can sign up to get the 5 fundamentals checklist to enable you to have a think about how you're applying those fundamentals within your life, and then you can join my mailing list and get my regular newsletter. Again, the link for this show is powertolivemore.com / 40, and I look forward to speaking to you next time.
Use your power to live more.